Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to Haddsman, another person who started this game on PS4, and another welcome player of War Thunder, one of those men who's brave, bold, and durable enough in the emotional areas to play the Chally 2, a truly challenging vehicle in the game of War Thunder if you believe some of the people that I've been listening to. Of course, don't take my word for it. I am by no means an expert in top tier. Even battle ratings as high as 7.7 and 8.3 I rarely spend time in, but now that such capable vehicles have come to the game as the aforementioned Challenger 2 and everything that steal its lunch money and make it look like a little bitch, you know what you are. Helicopters getting a big nerf with update 1.97. But that's beyond me, this high tier stuff. And it comes down to the fact that there are a few things I really enjoy building up in War Thunder. Number one, close air support ground strike skills. They are a series of capabilities that you can continually work on, and there's so much that you have to keep updating in terms of your skill and just keep pushing, and it almost seems like the sky is the limit when it comes to close air support before you get into very effective anti-aircraft platforms that are entirely reasonable at top tier. And then there's things like range estimation, which are rendered almost irrelevant by APFSDS high-velocity lawn darts, where you have to know if is that guy 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers away. I can't hit that 1 foot square weak spot on his tank around the cannon breech if I don't know within 1 kilometer how close he is. Meanwhile, in the Sherman 105, you're like, is that 205 or 208 feet away? That's right, we measure in freedom in American tanks. But that is just the way things are. Pork is a nice white meat. And you know what? That's what has turned me off of top tier, even high tier, along with the fact that I'm already blind, so which is one of the reasons I like to fly close air support. You can see the bugs crawling around better than you can see the Ruskies in the Bushkis. But at top tier, you're not dealing with a low-profile Soviet tank 400 yards away, all bushed, or all gillied up, I should say, and peeking around a rock. You're dealing with a low-profile Soviet frying pan at 3.5 kilometers away, peeking around the side of a house, all gillied up and ready for some lovin'. So the issues advance, and the thermals, another advance that came to War Thunder that is definitely, as far as I can tell, again, don't take my word for it, a game changer. Shot in the turret ring and also taking another hit, Haddsman having somewhat of a hard time here in the defensive focused Chally 2, but suffering because he's not dead, because the Chally 2 does have better survivability than the aforementioned stellinium-laced frying pan. Excuse me. Oh, I'm gonna get a good stretch in here. Sorry about that, if that seemed a little bit weird in the mic, but I'm starting to feel like an old man again. I'm definitely getting what has to be my third or fourth respiratory virus in the past month or so. It's been absolutely ridiculous. I get everything, and then I get over it. I haven't died of the flu yet, but I'm really trying. And Brooklyn, my almost 3-year-old girl, I kid you not, April 1st, she turns 3. I know. Oh my gosh, I just felt like a huge surge of love and fatherly pride. So proud of that girl. And Haddsman, someone that I just met, popped into the Discord. Hey, heard you do replays. He probably heard it from me. I always rep this channel on the War Thunder subreddit, live.War Thunder, YouTube, wherever. I'm like, hey, I know this guy that does replays. Oh, look, it's me. And one of the reasons that I'm so unashamed about sharing the fact that I feature replays on these social media platforms is, one, this is actually something that I just do because I feel like it. I don't get any money out of this, you know, I'm not shilling. I am a public servant, your humble friend, Toshio Thunder. And I probably always will be, because it's actually more of a hassle to try and make money off of YouTube than it is for me to just live my life and have this be my social network. Hopefully, who is it that owns YouTube now? Is it Google? Our Snailian overlords don't get too... Oh, sorry, Google. Our reptilian overlords don't get too upset about the fact that they're not getting paid for people watching these videos. But, whatever. And then the other thing, just a long explanation, isn't it? I love to give exposure to you guys. So, kids... No, we're not going to make that joke. Anyway, in any event, Haddsman finally getting some respect as he uses the Chally 2 exactly the way I assume you should use it. Look at how often he's bopping between third-person view, binoculars, thermals. He's really paying attention to what's going on around him. He's on the backside of a rise that he can peek over to press the gun down and gun down enemies. He's firing on enemy vehicles that are often on the move or with their armor not positioned well to defend against his... that's not the charm round, is it? I hear Brits asking for charm, and I'm wondering if they're talking about charisma or dental care or a better APFSDS round. Maybe, why not all three? Porque no los tres? See what I did there? I am a multicultural man, I tell you. In any event, this is exactly the way you should play Chally 2. And this is sort of the way of things when it comes to top tier. Awareness, caution, tactical positioning, and just a lot more careful gameplay comes along with these advanced killing mechanics, devices, murder machines that you see in top tier. And it goes for everybody. If you're in an aircraft, if an SPAA sees you, you're probably going to die fairly quickly. And vice versa. If you're in a ground vehicle, if an enemy tank sees you, you're probably going to die very quickly. And vice versa. Therefore, Mercutio, wherein lieth the rub? Mercutio? No, never mind. It's just a scratch, but it's enough. Where was I going here as my brain melts and runs out of my ears? Right. Tactics matter so much more in high tier than they do in low tier. As a bomb bounces off of Haddsman, and yet, that was only, what, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds. Get out of here. It wasn't even enough to blow off the second jerry can on the back of the tank. Yeah. Top tier, everybody. Bombs in War Thunder, everybody. But, it's all about the tactics. And these tactics on display, a defensive playstyle. This is the kind of playstyle you can bring into lower tier and do very, very well with. And in that regard, if you want to get back to fun tier, as Haddsman gets once again pestered by enemy close air support, and now having been spotted on the map, targeted by enemy frying pans at long range, as you do. Man, I just keep on losing my train of thought today. Sorry, I'm starting to get a little bit of a fever. I am a handy, capable announcer today, but you get the idea. This defensive playstyle works well in all of the Game of War Thunder. One of the things that you'll notice is Haddsman didn't pick the best sniping spot on the map and just sit there. What he did is he found a good, reasonable tactical position that was filling the net with his team, so that there wasn't a big gap in the defensive line. He found the spot, he used it, and when it was time for him to move forward, he moved forward. And after he moved forward, he got focused by the enemy, and he will slowly die, but victory achieved. And that is a strategy that you can bring into any tier in War Thunder and do well with. You gotta know when to hold them. You gotta know when to fold them. You gotta know when to walk away and when to run. And I am happy to feature a techies. I make my love of the European Canadian and his community no secret on my channel. You can always point to sour grapes or bad apples, or even people who can come off a bit abrasive in a certain situation and say, oh, that community is garbage. And I have been guilty of doing the same thing. I think with regard to the War Thunder subreddit, I've really given it more of a reputation for negativity that it really deserves. And that's probably because certain people stand out. But Gandalf, he's a great guy. Even if he's a killer professor. I mean, first day of class, it's like, you shall not pass. And I was like, geez, man. But in any event, it's an old meme, sir, but it still checks out. I was just about to let him through. The Vampire, a bloodsucker from a bygone era. I would say it casts a shadow over these matches, but such is not the case. A reasonable turn fighter for a jet fighter, and yet also capable of relatively high speeds, although when compared with the competition, you might find it lacking in that area, and thus Gandalf wisely being targeted by an enemy vampire, getting some separation from the enemy team and himself before he engages in the dogfight. Never a terrible idea, and he's checking the range of this foe. Once you get to around 1 kilometer away, when you're in these high-speed jets, you can start to open up with the 20 mils if you want to, if that's what you want to go for, if you're confident in your aim, if your enemy's flying in a straight line. Because these aircraft move so swiftly, your cannon rounds are going to disappear and become ineffective, inaccurate, and a waste of time. Looks like Gandalf might be slightly, well, he was out climbing that vampire. Now, enemy Vampy is pitching up for him. Is Gandalf going to go for the energy trap? Okay, he's leveling off. This is a typical energy trap here that he's trying to drop on the enemy vampire. If the enemy climbs directly toward him, he is going to recover energy less rapidly than Gandalf does, and that's why you would use that sort of stair-step kind of maneuver. Now, the Grey Wizard rolling over for the drop-down attack. He's hoping to drop in on the tail of his enemy and his foe climbing up for him. In this next turn, Gandalf should be able to drop onto the tail of the enemy, who should be at a slightly lower energy state, but we're going to find out. Now they're rolling in the vertical and looping. This could be anybody's fight, but you can see the energy trap has worked. This rolling and looping is just the end result of that position / energy advantage that Gandalf built with that stair-step maneuver. Again, it's one of the typical energy traps, and it is a fantastic tool in your hands throughout the majority of War Thunder Air RB. Once you get into jets that can power climb for 10 kilometers virtually vertical, things start to change. But here in lower tier jets, you can see that works out quite nicely. Again, we see the wisdom of Gandalf getting separation from the rest of the enemy team, as both he and the enemy vampire go into a very low energy state. Getting some hits on the tail of his foe, not enough to take him down, as his Spanos fail to deal the necessary damage in a short amount of time. Sometimes these Hispanos can be like shotguns, and other times they can be like rock salt, and you just have to sort of, I'm not sure if it's knowing what's best or getting lucky, but there is word on the street is Hispanos have been buggy for a long time. I couldn't tell you, man. I don't know enough, but Gandalf did get some more hits and a few sparkles there with the last gun run, and now more pieces fly off the tail of the enemy vampire. Once you take damage in a jet, even if it's not enough to kill you, it can often kill your flight performance, which was enough to give this Techies Elite Squad member the opportunity to take down his doppelganger. Now, it's time to move on toward, is that another enemy vampire? Bleh! I'm a spooky vampire. Bleh. Sorry. My daughter Brooklyn, who again, almost 3, super exciting. She absolutely loves spooky things. So if Daddy does the vampire voice, you're gonna hear some happy giggles, that I guarantee you. Gosh, that girl is so stinking cute. She's training up to be my successor, and much more successful than me. She is going to be, I'm absolutely sure she's going to be a very strong, independent woman. And yet she's also going to need some guidance, because she gets so caught up in what she's doing that she loses sight of whether or not she's being reasonable. And I say that, you're like, yeah, Toshio, I mean, she's 3. You expect her to have a solid handle on logic and reasoning and accountability, and I'm like, well, no, I mean, obviously. But I know these personality traits and where she gets them. My mom! She gets them from my mom. And I've already accepted the fact, and this is a fact, that she's going to have a little bit looser grasp on accountability when she's in the heat of her projects than other people might have. And knowing that, I'm just going to take care of her. It's what I'm going to do. Getting a second kill and getting back to base and back in the air. Gandalf now with 2 fighter kills and an F-84 coming in for the head-on, as you do as an American, finding himself at a lower speed but still close to his airfield, where he could perhaps, potentially, maybe, hopefully a little bit have a chance to get some energy back to fight off these F-84s. Notorious quick burst, actually somewhat of an extended burst in terms of jets, pulling away before the enemy F-84 can commit to the head-on. 2 enemy jets, F-84s, energy monsters. They have that incredible engine at this lower battle rating in terms of jets that really makes them stand out in terms of top speed and ability to get there. Straight line effectiveness, jet meta gameplay against what is more or less the Spitfire of jet aircraft. As Gandalf takes AA fire from his own friendly AA, they also manage to finish off that F-84 for Gandalf's 3rd kill. You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the match is done. Does anybody get this? It's Kenny Rogers, guys. It's Kenny Rogers. He's not a raving alcoholic, okay? He's a country singer. Well, he was a country singer. He's one of those guys that was sort of, he was pretty popular when I was a little kid, and he was sort of going out of style. And then he's sort of, why do I keep saying sort of? The man developed a reputation for being a fat, washed-up alcoholic. And his later work didn't do a lot to disperse that opinion. F3D1, the killer whale, the orca of the skies, in competition with Japan for fat sow of an underpowered jet aircraft, and yet equipped with some good guns and a targeting radar, as well as, in terms of close air support potential, not garbage bomb loadout if that's your sauce. And yet, in this match, finding himself low, which is not always terrible for a jet, and slow, which is generally terrible for a jet, against Gandalf in the Vampire, I fully expect him to be the next victim in this match. It's almost like he hasn't noticed Gandalf, or he doesn't know what to do, and yet A2D dropping in from the sky. F3D, you could be bait now. Pull up, man, pull up. Nope, but he loses an aileron or something. A2D dropping in on Gandalf. Looks like he's got the speed advantage over him. This could be a really sticky situation for our hero. Gandalf taking his kill where he can get it, going for the orca. Shots, did they hit? Did they miss? Not quite sure. But in the heat of the moment, with an A2D on your tail, it's easy to get distracted, especially against such an intimidating aircraft that started with an energy advantage and has a huge advantage in a maneuvering dogfight in terms of energy recovery. Yet, the enemy pilot not necessarily in a position to outperform Gandalf in a low-speed maneuvering dogfight as the White Wizard. You see that? He came back from the airfield, so he's the White Wizard now? Yeah, I'm so cool like that. Pops, flaps, and gets on the tail of the American attacker, and yet, with its incredible turboprop powerhouse of a power pack, the A2D is able to outrun the Vampire at short range. This would be the time to either climb, which is what I would recommend, or turn with just enough distance to turn on the vampire. And yet that's not what we see the enemy A2D pilot doing, which leads me to believe he might not be extremely experienced in jet combat. This is a premium aircraft after all. This might be a learning experience for him. He's not maneuvering at this point. Okay, now he's going into a committed turn. There's a few things you could do here, but Gandalf goes for attempting to turn inside the A2D1, which is not really going to give him an energy advantage. So he's going for the turn fight against this guy. What I actually would have done is something that I like to experiment with, which is to use a little bit of negative elevator to open up the distance between us in the turn, which helps me to close on the first pass. Instead, we see Gandalf going into a rolling scissors with the A2D, which he performs well, and we've reset the positions again, this time with the enemy attacker pilot at a significantly closer range than he was last time he tried to extend, which is going to easily put him within the range of Gandalf's guns. As we see the result, tail controls blown away into an uncontrolled flat spin, and with some more Hispano to ask, "How's your father?" And that is the ace in the vampire against himself, facing what would be his reflection if he wasn't, of course, a spooky, scary vampy man. And the enemy team now out of points. Gandalf gets the victory. 2 wins, 2 replays, 2 British lads doing well as you do, using very effective strategies, tactics, and skills to do well in an area that I myself don't spend a ton of time in. Low tier jets, very fun. Top tier tanks, not my bag, but maybe one day. Maybe one day. In any event, I hope you enjoyed these couple of replays, and I hope you're enjoying your time in War Thunder. There's a link to my Discord in the description of this video. Highly encourage you to come check in and hang out with the people there. Great group of folks. And I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.